set up for success.
LTTV! LTTV! LTTV!
Hiya, Team 337, Simon Lee, LTTV, back in the LTTV clubhouse, recovering from an amazing time at the Victorian State Titles 2025. Shout out to the Victorian team for a huge weekend. We had an abundance of wind, dolphins, black flags, holes in sails, loot players, camping, bacon and egg rolls, pear cider, sun, and as you'll see shortly, rain. Big thanks to the Western Port Yacht Club for the excellent race management and hospitality. What a great place to sail. During the morning of the second day, a number of sailors gave a presentation on their LT settings in various conditions. I was lucky enough to catch State Champion Luke Meyers' chat, which I found highly insightful. So here it is. Luke wanted me to point out that it is very informal, and I hope you get as much out of it as I have. Take it away, Luke.
I'll do a little session from maybe a lightweights perspective, a few little different things, but I just want to take you through sort of what I've learnt in my 5 years doing LT. And by the way, like we're always learning new things as well. Like I made a change last week when I was training with Scotty that with my mast-based position, you know, one finger further back on the track, just a slight little 1% increase has just given me another little 1% improvement. So there's always things you can learn, and we're all, you know, aren't we, Scotty? We're learning all the time, extra little things to make it better. So what I reckon, I'll try and keep this simple, but first thing when I get to the beach is I want to know roughly what the wind's blowing before I start rigging up. So went down there before, we're going to call that 15 knots. So what I've got with my rigging, I've got three settings. I've got a light wind setting, a medium wind setting, and a strong wind setting. So my light wind setting is, say, call it 5 knots. My medium wind setting is 15 knots, and my strong wind setting was yesterday in 25 knots in the last race. So we've all see these numbers, and come in a bit closer, guys, if you just want to just come and see what I'm doing with numbers. But all these masts have got the numbers on the side here. Now, what we know is these stickers, when they slap them on in the mast factory, these stickers are often put not in the same place as every other mast. So your numbers, your measurements from the mast down to the base may be different to other people's because the stickers aren't always put in the right place. By the way, some of this stuff I learnt from Nick Bez when I started racing, because Nick's world champion, and I learnt from him, and I'm just sort of passed on what I learnt from him and people like Bruce Kendall and pass it on. So call it a 5 knot setting first of all. So on my base, basically a light wind setting for me is 5 on the base here. By the way, everybody should have their boom set on 40 for light to medium winds. So 40, this is a Bez thing. Your boom should be on 40, not 37.5. The only time you put it out to 42.5 is when it's 30 knots, and like Gordon and I are racing at the Nationals in Toronto and it's blowing 30 knots and we've just got to get more outhaul on the sail. So we go to 42.5 when it's 30 knots. Every other time the boom should be on 40. So I pull my base down to 5 because we just assume we've got 5 knots out there. When I go to set my sail, now I don't call it rigging, we call it tuning. So we want to, you see that vertical crease in the sail there up through the mast length, that's the vertical crease there with no outhaul. I'm pulling that out until I see that vertical crease start to disappear. That's gone now. Now that's my light wind setting, which is basically 2 to 3 fingers from the back end of the boom. Now Scotty and I have worked this out through our training together. We set everything identical. When we go to train, then it's like everything's the same, we're the same weight, and so that's 2 fingers from the end of the boom. So set at 5. You might have a few like 45-degree little creases coming off the top batten here. If you don't have enough downhaul, like that, you can see these creases just running across here. So I always want to get rid of that because that just, to me, that's not enough downhaul. So I'll pull that on. You'll see them slowly disappear. See that as I come to 5 there. Okay, so that's my light wind setting. Now the other thing, and I learnt this back in July talking to Bruce Kendall up in Sydney. Bruce is two-time, Olympic medalist, world champion. In light winds, Bruce says, have your boom as low as you can possibly comfortably have your boom. So if it's 5 knots, I go down to, for me, it's the windsurfer logo here. Now that's my 5 knot boom height just there. I go up about 1.5 inches. When it gets to railing conditions, I call today's 15 knots as railing conditions. I'll put my boom up 1.5 inches. So, good question. Like basically for windsurfing, your boom as a starting point should be about shoulder height. It should be somewhere between armpit and chin height. Like Bruce Kendall, when it gets to railing, he jams his boom up about 5 inches. As soon as it gets to like 12 knots and he can rail at 70 kilos, he'll jam his boom right up. Bruce is probably up here with his boom. Everybody's different. But yeah, certainly when you get to railing, say first race yesterday, and we know we can rail in that 12, 14 knots we had, I'm going to go up another inch and a half, which is how I'm going to have it today. So it's not about control, it's about hanging off the boom. Yep. So what you want to do, you want to hang like a monkey off the harness lines. So yeah, Gordon and Daryl were talking a bit about harness lines, which is great. Harness lines super important. So again, this is my 5 knot setting. My lines are always really close together. That way, some people have them wide apart, but my concern about having lines that far apart is simply by hooking in, you're sheeting in just by hooking in. You don't want to be, I don't think you want to be sheeting in when you hook, just when you hook in. You don't want the lines to be sheeting in. Like your tabs are here. If you hook into the lines without even holding the boom, you're sheeting the sail in, right? What you want to be doing in light winds, I reckon, and I have them this close together up to about maybe 12, 13 knots, is I'm opening and closing the gate with my backhand. So what you don't want to do with these sails, you do not want to oversheet them when you're trying to get on the rail. So that way I'm really hanging off the boom. My boom's higher, I'm trying to get on the rail, and I'm physically with my backhand, I'm sheeting in with my backhand as opposed to the harness lines sheeting me in. Does that sort of make sense? Look, wide harness lines apart works for some people. I know Bezzy has them wide. I mean, he's a world champion, so we can't argue with that. But most of the top guys now have got them really close together. Like people like Bruce Kendall. So bloody rain. So that's my light wind setting, close together. Also, my lines are elbow to fingertips. That's how long my lines are. That way I can really hang like a monkey off the boom, higher boom, trying to get on the rail, hanging off the boom. So yeah, no worries. So that's my 5 knot setting. So I'm at position 5.
Sorry to interrupt Luke's deluge of wisdom, but I was wondering if you could do me a favour and click the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and your click really helps. Huge thanks, and back to Luke.
We know we've got roughly 15 knots out there now, so my downhaul is between 5 and 8, or 5 and 7.5. So I go 5, 6, 7. So 5 is light winds. I'll go down to a 6 for about maybe 12, 13 knots. Because I've pulled an inch down there, or pulled a finger more down there, I'm going to pull another ½ inch to an inch out on the outhole to about a finger from the end. So you can pull my finger, Ash, no problem. So 15.
You're not just pulling to a mark, you're looking at your sail as you do.
Yeah, I'm looking at the sail, trying to tune the sail, but I know what my settings are, so I can just pull it out to what I think for a certain wind, and it's going to be right. When it's 15, like yesterday's racing, I had it at 6.5 when it was about 15 to 20 knots. Had it down to 6.5, so I'm going from 5 to 6.5 for 15 knots. And then when we had 25 knots, Like I'm 77 kilos. It's harder for a lightweight to hang in there when it's 25, 30 knots compared to, you know, big strong Gordon and Daryl. So I've got to make sure my rigging is right to be able to hang in there with those guys upwind, especially upwind. Daryl was powering. So I went down to 7 and a bit for 25 knots, actually 7.5. And I went another finger out on the boom, like almost right to the end of the boom there. Okay, so that's almost the end of the boom. That's my 25 knot setting. Now getting back to harness lines, like we all know, like there's got these markers on the inside of the boom. Those markers are there for a reason. When the guys like Bruce Wally and Ricardo Giordano designed this whole setup, the markings are all there for a reason. So what you want to do when it starts to get windy is get that back line back to at least back to that back marker. So that back marker is a good indicator for roughly where your back tap should be when it gets to, you know, 20, 25 knots. Then like the guys were saying before, you can go further back than that once it gets to survival 25, 30 knots. So now I am doing, like I'm moving it back to that back marker. So yesterday my back one was at the back marker there, just slightly behind it, 25 knots. And my lines were that far apart, like that. So my hands are shoulder width apart either side of the lines, and pretty well balanced because my sail's flattened off. Longer lines are, I think, are better because you can hang in the lines more. So you want to try and drop your weight low, sink into the lines, and then you've got some sort of control over a sail that's very unstable because it is an older design sail. So.
Do anything with your batten, Luke?
The only time I let the batten off is when it's windier than yesterday.
You let it off?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
It's flat.
Yeah, so I leave it on until it's 30 knots, like at the marathon at Toronto, 30 knots. I'll let that batten off about an inch just to let it take the shape out of the top, just loosen it off.
Okay.
Gordon probably full power. Gordon doesn't let it off. Big, strong, 90 kilo heavyweight, he wants full power. Daryl will leave it on as well, but I'm 20 kilos lighter, so I need to depower a bit. I can't match him if it's you know, survival if I don't depower my sail. So just going back to this, so that's my 25 knot setting. Is I had it like close to, had it 7.5 on the downhaul, and that's my 25 knot setting. You know, if it gets a little bit windier than yesterday, I'll just go block to block at the back end, and that's really flat. That's my flattest setting. So that's my strong wind setting, and I've shown you my medium wind setting. And light wind. So I'm going from 5 to 7.5 on the base. So I'll just back it off again now. Back to, well, I'm going to put it at about 6 because I reckon that's about 12, 15 knots out there. But you really need to have an idea what that wind's doing, I think, before you hit the water. So that way you're not having to try and change everything on the water. And I'm about 2 fingers from the back of the boom there. Yeah, always at 40, always, yep. We've just worked it out over the years, like it should be at 40. Because that way, if you have it at 37.5 or 35 and all of a sudden 25 knots comes through, it goes from 10 to 25. How are you going to adjust your boom on the water if you're stuck a mile out? It's too hard. So, yeah, so that's, so I'm back at 6 and my lines, I'll go back closer together. Can't believe this rain. Unbelievable. All right, yeah, cool guys.